wasn't the weekend that the Northern Territory Police Commissioner Michael Murphy was hoping for either. The Chief Minister, Finocchiaro, issuing a statement late on Saturday night saying that it was clear the Police Commissioner, Michael Murphy, APM's position was untenable. She said that she had informed the Commissioner that he'd lost the confidence of the government and gave him the opportunity to resign. Now, joining me in the studio a little earlier than usual, so we could have her on the show live today, it is the Chief Minister, Finocchiaro. Good morning to you, Chief Minister.
Good morning, Katie, and to your listeners.
Now, Chief Minister, you have known the person at the centre of this damning ICAC report was Michael Murphy since it was published. Why did it take so long for you to decide you no longer had confidence in the Commissioner?
Well, I think what's important to understand is this has been 8-9 days. Now, it's been incredibly frustrating for your listeners, Katie, for myself as well. Once that Operation Apollo statement was put forward by the ICAC, there were those requirements around confidentiality, and I couldn't do anything that could lead anyone to understand the identity. Now, of course, Mr. Murphy did not declare it was him until quite late in the piece, until that Thursday. On that Thursday, then the NTPA certainly came out saying that he could no longer, that he had to resign. On Friday, I took the opportunity to listen to the NTPA and to meet with them. On Saturday, I contacted Mr. Murphy and told him that his position was untenable and he'd lost the confidence of government. Of course, over that entire period, he had the opportunity to resign, and I gave him that opportunity again on Saturday, and then that was not forthcoming, and so I've commenced that process now for termination.
What would have happened had he not outed himself? Because the fact is, I mean, you've lost confidence in him. The government's lost confidence in him. So what would have happened had he not issued that statement last Thursday?
Yeah, it could just have dragged on a very excruciating and frustrating period, because I still have limitations in the ICAC sense around what I can say publicly, and that would have continued. And I think this has raised a really good issue around, is the ICAC fit for purpose? I know, we'll probably cover off on that a bit later, Katie, but it's been a very difficult period. I know people have been saying, you should have just said it anyway, but as Chief Minister, I can't just break the law when it suits me. It's this is a framework that we have to operate within, and it's. I don't think it was the right process, but it's the process that happened.
Well, it's not only incredibly frustrating, it sort of beggars belief in a lot of ways. So I'm not really interested in, why you didn't name him earlier. I guess what I'm interested in is, what changed your mind in this situation since Monday when we last spoke? Because as I said, you obviously knew who that person was. You weren't able to name them for whatever reason, but you're in a situation where clearly, and as you've now stated, you do not have confidence in Michael Murphy. So what changed your mind over that period?
It's not that there was a change of mind. It's just I was limited in what I could say at the time. So straight away on that Friday when the Operation Apollo statement was made, I wrote a letter to both the Commissioner and to the CEO of Chief Minister and Cabinet. One, to make sure that our processes across the whole of government and our training was appropriate, because if this could happen to in such a high-ranking person as a police commissioner, imagine how many recruitment processes across government happen. So,
should you have actually asked him to resign at that point?
Oh, look, I haven't asked him to resign, because I think when you're at that level, he could make up his own decision around that.
But you have now though, right?
Well, no, I have not asked him to resign. I've moved to start a process of termination. It's still open to him to resign if he would like, but otherwise...
So this is all still very much in the air. What happens if he decides he's going to drag his heels?
Well, no, we've commenced a process of termination. So there's two different things. One is when someone resigns, they resign, right? They walk away. The other is where the employer, which is not the most appropriate word in this context, but just for the sake of the conversation, where the employer then initiates the process to remove the person. So that's the process we're undertaking.
So should you have done that when you learned that it was him, when that ICAC report came out?
So I commenced the process straight away of understanding what has happened, what are you doing about this, those types of things. And then obviously over the course of the week, to get to the point where we did, the person had to be made public.
I mean, did you only make this move because there was the concern that Justine Davis, the independent member for Johnson, had threatened to name him under parliamentary privilege?
No, that's entirely a matter for her. I think I said at the time that, that's completely within her remit to make that decision. Did that have an influence in eventually why the commissioner came out? I don't know, but ultimately they're separate processes.
So have you spoken to Michael Murphy over the weekend?
Yes, so I spoke to him on Saturday and I explained to him, that he had no longer had the trust and confidence of the government, that his position was untenable. How
did he respond?
Look, I won't go into the conversation, but essentially, I put those things to him, and now there's a process. So I've been really clear with Territorians about the process because, again, it will probably be frustrating for some of your listeners. So just for clarity for everyone, we've now commenced that process of termination. What that looks like is Mr. Murphy has to be afforded natural justice as appropriate. There is then a period where Cabinet has an involvement, Executive Council has an involvement, and then ultimately it will end up in some form of recommendation to the administrator who...
It sounds like it's going to be long, drawn out, and potentially very expensive.
Not necessarily. It just is an important process. So we just have to see that through. In terms of expensive, I was also very transparent in my statement on Saturday night. The employment determinations around a police commissioner allow or mandate effectively 6 months remuneration. So that will be a cost to the taxpayer, but we've been very upfront about that.
So could be looking at $500,000, $250,000.
Look, it will be 6 months of whatever the police commissioner's, remuneration, I should say, not salary.
Okay, all right. Now, Martin Dole, APM, is now the acting police commissioner. Why Mr. Dole?
So he's currently the deputy, prior to Saturday, he was the deputy commissioner. So on Saturday, Mr. Murphy was asked to go on leave. I immediately put in place acting Commissioner Dole because I want continuity for our police, stability. Police just need to get on with the job as best they can, as hard as this period has been, and try not to get bogged down in this. So his certainty was important. So Mr. Dole was Deputy Commissioner, so he moves into that acting role, as he has done several times before.
Was the now acting commissioner, Martin Dole, on the panel in which Michael Murphy was on?
Yeah, I've now been aware that he was on that panel just this morning.
So is that appropriate, that he is now the acting police commissioner?
So he certainly is not part of the statement that was made in Operation Apollo. I can only deal with what's in front of me. And ultimately, as deputy, his role is to act up. I've got full confidence in his ability to do that, and we need stability across the force. He put out a fantastic message to police on Saturday night, expressing to them our heartfelt thanks for their hard work, that there's a big job ahead, and we just really want our police focused on keeping our community safe.
Look, I don't really have an opinion either way on whether Martin Dole should be acting in the role or not, but from looking at this from the outside in, I sort of go, all right, we've got a Northern Territory Police Commissioner who's had to stand down as a result of this ICAC report. You've then now got the Deputy Commissioner who was on that same panel. Now, I totally take on what you were saying, that he is not part of the ICAC report, but the optics are not good.
I don't agree with that, Katie. And ultimately, people can tear people down at every level for as long as they want to. I just don't have information in front of me that would make me think any otherwise. I think in all of my interactions with Mr. Dole, he's been exemplary. He's obviously a long-standing Territory cop. He is the Deputy Commissioner, and it is entirely appropriate for him to act up in the role. There has been no wrongdoing being asserted, and I've not had any indication to the contrary. So people can form their own judgments again. My job is about certainty and stability going forward, and that's what we've delivered.
Chief Minister, is there going to be a review into the other people who've been appointed to senior executive roles over the last year?
Look, I think that will all come out in the wash, Katie. Right now we've got to go through this first process and then ultimately move forward from there. What I want right now is that certainty in our police. We need business as usual. This is been a very awful time for our police, and things are just starting to really be getting back on track. Attrition's going down, powers, we're passing legislation to give police better powers. We've got the retention bonus on foot, lots of good things happening. And I just want our police to know that their government supports them and to keep going. They're doing a great job. We need them strong, and I don't want other distractions at this time.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I mean, the fact is there is so many changes underway, really at, going in a direction that the community voted for.
Yes.
But now you've got a situation where we are indeed whether we want to be or not, in the situation that we're currently in. I mean, does it instill confidence in the force, though, if we have potentially got other executives at the top that are maybe in positions that, people could be questioning whether they should be?
But I think, at the end of the day, what we have is the Operation Apollo report. That's all we can, the Operation Apollo statement. That's all we can deal with what's in front of us. And that had a very specific instance in it. Now, to that extent, we have to move forward, and that's what we're doing. It's about making sure that we give that stability, that confidence, that certainty to the police leadership so that it can be business as usual. And we are achieving good things, Katie. There's 500 more people in prison than there were 6 months ago, and that's a good thing.
So, I mean, I'll go back to, though, the question, does there need to either be a review into other people who have been appointed or an inquiry into this? Because you've got to start to question whether whether the force have got confidence, whether the remainder of the force. I mean, we all saw the statement that the Police Association issued on Friday, like you've touched on. People are hurting at the moment. Disruption is probably a very mild way of putting it.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Look, Katie, I haven't ruled anything in or out, but right now my focus is on this. At the end of the day, what happens in a month or 2 months or 3 months' time will happen, and we will chart the right course. I think Territorians have seen that we're a government of action. They've seen that community safety is our number one priority. They have no reason to believe that we are not doing everything we can in the best interest of supporting police. And so we just have to go through this next process. My priority will be on this top issue. And when we move through that, we'll get to the next thing.
Are you concerned that there could be systemic issues within the force when you look at jobs for mates?
No, I'm not.
You're not concerned about that at all?
No.
Okay. Now, what steps are going to be taken to find this new commissioner?
So there is no recruitment process on foot. I want to be very clear about that. We have started a process for termination. That is where our focus is. The next steps is natural justice, and we'll move through the rest of the stages.
So at this point in time, no steps being made to find the next commissioner. We are simply trying to get rid of the last.
Well, what we're doing is absolutely not recruiting. There is no recruitment process. I'm not looking around. There were some rumours yesterday that popped up about who I might like to see. It's just not true. There is no process on foot for that whatsoever. The process that is on foot is starting the process of termination.
Chief Minister, this whole situation has been, a debacle, I want to say, over the last week or so. With the ICAC, should we be in a situation where we can actually name a public servant at the centre of a situation like this one?
Well, I think it does raise a really important question that if the ICAC deems something so serious that they make a public statement about it, at what level do they afford the anonymity protections? And so if that was a member of parliament, for example, say exactly the same situation but a member of parliament, the statement would have named them. So I think very much the community would expect if you're a senior public servant that there would be naming. But I think it goes beyond this, Katie.
I mean, I would say he is higher than a senior public servant. You are talking about somebody that is running the entire Northern Territory police force.
Yeah, and again, these are the decisions that the ICAC made, and they're theirs to own. Unfortunately...
But within Northern Territory government legislation...
Yeah, that's right. But they're the ones who make the decision. It's not me that makes the decision, it's them. And so they have to own that. Now, going forward, I think there's a lot of things we need to look at with the ICAC, including how does it interact with our other integrity bodies. Territorians have spent $35 million on ICAC. And I think the feedback I get from people is they don't have a lot of confidence.
So does it need to go? What needs to happen?
I think we need to be looking at how it interacts with other integrity functions, because Territorians pay handsomely for all of those as well. For example, I think a couple of weeks ago there was an ICAC statement around a public servant taking leave. There was a leave issue. And some people are questioning, well, why is the ICAC spending time and money looking at that? Is that really an issue for them? Is that better done by the agency or the Public Service Commissioner or the Ombudsman? You know, I think there's a lot to unpack here. Again, in the fullness of time, we'll get to those issues, and, we're committed to dealing with the ICAC this year, because people are still paying for 2 ICAC commissioners as well.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, I guess right now, though, we're sort of blurring two situations. In this instance, the ICAC did do their job properly and, and obviously released the report last week. In terms of the naming of public servants, senior public servants, if indeed that change is made, how quickly could that happen and how would it work?
I wouldn't be minded to just tinker with the ICAC Act. I don't think that will really yield long-term benefits to Territorians. So I think if we were to do something, we'd be having a bigger discussion about what needs to be done.
So is that on the cards?
Well, I think that needs to be done this year, particularly in light of the fact we continue to pay for 2 ICAC commissioners.
So a full review of the ICAC?
I don't know if it'll be a full review, but we've certainly, a lot of issues have come up over the years, and Territorians lack confidence in that institution. Now, it's very important that of all things, people have confidence in the ICAC, the Office of the ICAC. And when they don't, it causes a lot of problems. So I think we've got work to do there. It's not an urgent priority, obviously, because we've been very focused on law and order and economic reform, and that's what people have seen over the last 6 months.
Chief Minister, what do you think this whole situation says about the Northern Territory Police Force, and really what is your message to the police listening this morning who are feeling probably pretty disillusioned about this whole situation?
Yeah, I think there'll be a very wide mix of feelings amongst our police, and, that is regrettable. They're doing a great job and they don't deserve to suffer some of them are feeling like it's damaged the uniform, the brand. Some of them are feeling let down, and we stand with you. That is why we're so focused on giving police the powers they need on community safety. There are many good things ahead, and this, it just has to be seen as a bump in the road, because we've got to move forward. We've got a bigger job ahead of us, and ultimately we'll move through this stage and ultimately be stronger and move forward.
Chief Minister Leah Finocchiaro, we appreciate you joining us in the studio this morning. I know you've got other commitments. Appreciate you being able to come in a little earlier than usual.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.